Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Open the meeting with public comment. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, we will go on to the 10 o'clock Silos Recreation Area request for proposals.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you for putting us on the agenda first thing this morning. You should all have had a copy of what I think we would consider the final proposal to you for an RFP. All the information we got from you a week ago is in there. We did go sit down with the BOR folks and go through. They had several comments in here about various things from their experiences putting with RFPs out. So we made a few adjustments. We reduced some of the verbiage on the background descriptions, some of those kind of things, because they're all available in all the background information. I think we have all the contact information that you gave us in here. If that's the way you want it. And you also have in a Word document, so whoever you have completing up your contracts and the advertisements and all that stuff, they can go through, change I pay especially the dates, the date on the front, and your I think there's another, no, it's on the advertisement. So those are things you guys have to. So I just ask you if you've got any questions about the RFP itself. Okay.
I don't have
Then I think the other document I sent you was the advertisement. And on that one, and specifically, whoever puts your contract advertisement stuff out will have to put the right date in, and that's in red in here. So you've got that. And I think other than that, things should be ready for you to turn it over to whoever actually issues your advertisements and contracts. The one thing on the web page, we need to make sure everything's up on the web page that's referenced in here. Dan copied or scanned the alternative maps that's in that flat map file that y'all got from Schaubers, and that was new information. But again, I look at it, that was all done by the design group out of Denver for the BOR, and that's the stuff that we thought needs to be really relooked at. That's why I think it's important that you guys are going out and finding a private consultant design firm to do this, so that we get that perspective and not just the BOR perspective. They'll be working with them, I'm sure, and looking at that stuff. But I'm glad we found it, but it doesn't change really what we're after and trying to get this done. And so with that, now a couple of the maps are pretty good size. It's taken me a half hour to load some of the maps on my home computer. But I'll put all that on a thumb drive and drop it by either your office or whoever you tell me to give it to. And all that stuff will be there. So then we're clear. I did talk to, or I communicated with the landscape design instructor, and I have their formal legal reference now of what they would like to have referenced for the students' work that worked with us a year ago on some of their design concepts and stuff. And she was ecstatic to know that we were taking those students' work and making it available to whoever gets the contract to look at and use. So,
Is that this site here, Al?
it's the one that's under the
Right.
reference, yeah.
MSU students work at?
Yes.
You can go to that link and
Yeah.
do it, okay.
my understanding. I'll do that, I'll double check and make sure. And then whoever you're having put this together probably needs to go through that reference material and make sure that it's all on the website. One thing, I think it was the BOR folks recommended is that if whatever your contract looks like that you actually sign once you get the RFPs and negotiate through that, it might be good to put that sample on that reference page so that anybody that's bidding through the RFP knows what kind of contract you're actually going to sign that will put the RFP into implementation. Okay. So with that, any other questions? Thank you for the feedback, so we can get this all wrapped up, and we look forward to seeing it out advertised soon.
Thanks, Al, you put a lot of work into this, I appreciate it.
The group has put a lot of work into this, and so the entire group has been involved in editing and rewriting and inputting, and just at this point, you know, for this, but prior to this, it was all the other stuff too. And we'll continue to make ourselves available. We'll be participating in the public involvement, and if you want somebody from this group on your evaluation team, I'm sure we've got members that would be happy to help you with that.
Thank you.
Okay? Well, there you go. Thank you very much.
I want to double check, but I think this needs to be advertised for a minimum of 21 days. It'd be wise to just do a full month. Better to be a little bit more than a little bit less. But this is a great opportunity for our community, and I think the team in BOR and the teamwork they've done is to be commended.
Who's going to kind of, is Nicole to be your kind of a lead on this, or what's your?
Well, we haven't asked her to, and I don't know what her workload is.
Yeah.
I think it should be the commission,
Yeah, okay.
and then working with Nicole to make sure things are updated onto the website. We have a lot of partners here in the county complex, but I think commission should be lead. With that, I move we proceed.
Okay, so do we want to have a date? Do we want to implement dates in here?
Yeah, so I would suggest 1 month from today, so that would be December 25th. We could scoot that out a day since that is a well-known holiday. But it's a month. Our requirement's 3 weeks, 21 days. We could go to, if you want, January 1st to get people through the holiday, but I hesitate to push this out too far. The other thing we could do is December 24th, which is over the 21 days.
So if we have it due by the 24th, then we would make a decision on the Monday following, like the 7th of January.
Well, we could do it December 30th or the 7th of January. If we did give it till, maybe it's just another 2 weeks, January 3rd, we could then review that January 7th, if that's the date you're looking at. So I guess at this point, it's 6 of 1, half dozen of the other. To get a good proposal, maybe that 2 weeks is necessary.
Do we have to give a date on? Do we have to give a date on final selection?
Yeah, it has to be on the agenda, noticed. It's a public process.
But do we have, when we advertise this bid, do we have to do we advertise for this, do we have to have a decision date on it? Or
No.
We just have to have it when it has to be submitted by?
Exactly, just that last paragraph is the submittal deadline. Beyond that, we can work around our schedule as long as it's agended.
So there's a motion to proceed with that. Do we also want to amend that motion to have a date for the responses to be received?
That's probably a really good idea. I guess I would, I'm torn between the dates, but I think maybe I'll amend my motion that we should proceed with a final deadline of I'm gonna cut the difference. I'm gonna amend for a final deadline of December 27th, right in between the two, at 5 o'clock. And I'm open to debate, discussion, any opinions you guys have. I'm just, it's a starting point. So I welcome any discussion.
So the
As always.
motion is to proceed with the advertisement for the Silos Recreation Area Master Plan, request for proposals, with a deadline of December 27th for submittal. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Is there any further discussion? Okay, so seeing none, we will proceed with the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same. Motion carries.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're anxious to see this move down the road.
Absolutely, yeah. This is a great opportunity. Thanks for your work.
We got a couple of minutes here before we go to our 10:15. We'll have the minutes from November 18th, 2019.
We'll move that we accept the minutes from November 18th.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve minutes from November 18th. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. We have some mail here. Shape Up Montana. A letter from Vigilante Electric for a notice of rate increases. Card from Dakota Playgrounds. Capability to install and repair all brands of parks and playground equipment. Water Waste Digest. Emotionally charged situations in the workplace, how to handle seminars. A receipt of payment from Bill Fleiner for restitution. From Great West Engineering to the County Commission, a enclosed review, working draft for the capital improvements plan. That's all the mail. Claims. Claims in the amount of $131,408.35.
I will move that we pay the approved claims in the amount of $131,408.35.
Is there a second?
No second.
Motion's been made and seconded to pay claims in said amount. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same. Motion carries. payroll claims in the amount of $197,340.91.
I'll move to pay payroll claims in the amount of $197,340.91.
Second.
Motion been made, seconded to pay claims the said amount. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries.
We have one other piece of mail, wanted to pull this and read it. We get this every year, and it states that the silos hasn't turned in their water test for October. They turn off the water October 1st. So every single year we get this letter. Every single year we change the date on the letter we've been sending for years that says silos turns off the water starting October 1 until April, therefore they don't do the testing because there is no running water there. So just to bring that to your attention, we'll have that letter for an upcoming meeting, so we can send that to DEQ, and they are made aware again of the situation. That's not to say that camping can't still happen out there, and we know that that does happen and that fees are charged.
So we'll go on to our 10:15, new county website options, funding, communication needs, state of the county addresses.
Where do we want to start? The website?
Yeah, please.
Well, I guess over the past several months, we've all had an opportunity to do a couple of webinars with several different sites or companies. One is Civics Plus. I don't know if you guys remember that one. Anyway, their site, or they provide the website for a lot of cities and counties in Montana. And I guess cost-wise, it came out to $11,550. Out of that, $9,300 was a website to develop the website. After that happens, we would only have an annual fee to maintain it of $2,250. They did give us an option that we could spread it over the cost of 3 years for $5,350 a year. I guess one of the reasons that we've talked about getting a website is first off, I think that the county needs to have their own website and not a shared website. But also it's a place for all our residents to come to have one source where they can kind of come to find information. You know, along with that, the thought was that we would live stream our commission meetings, and then immediately after they're live streamed, then they'll be archived. So folks can sit at home and watch the meeting as it happens in real time, and if they're working, they can come home that evening or at their leisure whenever and pull up those videos and watch what their county government's doing. We felt that's pretty important to provide the transparency to see that people are needing, and also it'd be huge for the folks down in the south end of the county that always feel that they have a long ways to travel if they want to attend meetings, so they'll be able to still see what's been going on. So I guess those are some of the reasons that we have discussed doing this. Along with this website, that's just the first component. We also discussed the civic clerk option, which basically is an online meeting management system. So once we get this set up, what would happen is the meetings will be time-stamped as we go along. It'll probably make Ann's job a little bit easier. But say, for example, you wanted to watch one of the meetings at home, but you weren't interested in some of the first items. You could go to the third agenda item at a specific time. You could actually go to that timestamp and listen to that specific piece of information that you're interested in. You don't have to listen to the whole video to find out what you're interested in. So that's one of the advantages of doing that. The other thing is that would become our, how do I say it, would be our record. It would be our meeting.
Become our official minutes.
Our official meeting minutes. And that's how a lot of folks are doing it. So, and we still record motions and actions. The rest of it would be archived and stored digitally. So, and obviously, that always costs more money, right? To have those kind of options. So that option would be an initial investment of $11,625. We would have an annual service of $8,800. And the reason we have that is because we have to have all the cloud storage to store all that video and make it accessible for folks to access it and view it. So that's kind of how that breaks down. Now there's some other investment, and that's going to be in equipment, and I think I'll let Mike talk about that. There's some specialized equipment we need to purchase right off the bat. And once we do that, the initial investment, then I think that's it.
Well, Mike, Broadwater County, you need a laptop with as many USB ports as you can get. There's nothing special there. Audio equipment, which I really looked at, is not that expensive for microphones, for 4 microphones and 2 or 3 cameras. The audio mixer is less than $100, and that handles all your microphones. And then you need software, and that's where Civic Plus, I think, had the best software to manage the system. And then, of course, internet access, and you need an encoder for the video, and that was about $2,500. I think that's all the equipment. It's pretty simple to set up. And
So that encoder, so everybody understands what the purpose of that is, it takes the video stream from the cameras and the sound, encodes it, and puts it in through the computer so that it can be viewed. And we looked at several different types. There's combination ones, and then there's ones that are separate.
I think the best one I found was the Monarch. Yeah, the Monarch. I think it was Monarch Plus. That was the best one.
Right.
Matrix Monarch HD.
So, and I guess we'll talk about this in a little bit later discussion. The conference room that we're considering over in the Opportunity Bank already has speakers in the ceiling, and it's already wired for cameras.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an advantage for us there. So that's less cost that we would have if we did use that room, right?
Yeah. And plus it's all more open, and I don't have all the pillars
Right.
blocking the voice and just the video limiting.
Right. Okay. Now, we did consider some other companies. We had, Government's Most Wanted. I think that's the site that you guys use. And they gave us a quote of, it was a little over, it was close to $6,000 for their website. But there's a few limitations to it, but it was a good site. I guess what I would suggest possibly is, at this point, maybe we would do another webinar, include more of our department heads and elected officials, let them view it, and to see if that's something that would work for them. One thing that it takes 28 weeks to develop this website, so it's not something that happens overnight. So once we make this decision, we're still looking at 28 weeks down the road till we have a final product. And what would happen is that, you know, each department will have their own page, basically, and they'll contribute to how they want their page to look and the information that they want the public to be able to view. That's all I got. Okay.
I don't know if you're ready for questions.
Yeah.
Just was wondering if that cost included all the departments and, you know, if, say, the sheriff's office did come on board with that, if it would be in that same,
It would
Okay.
include everybody.
okay,
So then you guys probably no longer have that cost.
okay.
Since you've got a pretty well-developed site, that'd probably make it a lot easier, you know.
Yeah, I think I'd be interested to talk to them and see if they can do some of the same things and, you know, see if we can come together and report the sheriff's interested, so.
Yep. Right. But I think, that's why I think I'd like everybody to, for us to do another webinar and view the Civics Plus and see if it's gonna meet everybody's needs before we make that decision, I guess. And they're pretty easy to set up. We can view them as a group, or you can view them from your own computer at a specific time throughout the building, so.
I think it would be a good idea to have a spreadsheet rundown of all the different companies you looked at, all the different proposals. It sounds like the decision's been narrowed to Civics Plus, but I think that the public should know, the commission should know what all the companies were, what their proposals were, so that when people do see that the decision was narrowed down to Civics Plus, why, and what the other options were.
And I guess just so everybody knows, I did contact some, you know, local companies in Bozeman, Missoula, Billings, and they could provide the service, but none of them really had experience at developing this big of a website. So.
Is this something that was compatible with the DIS? Does DIS do this or not? Or not? They
No,
don't?
No,
They don't?
no.
Okay.
It seemed like Civics Plus had all the right answers to help set it up, help manage it, where everybody else kind of didn't really want to set it up, and they were wanting to manage it, but they didn't want to set it all up.
Okay.
That's what we were running into.
And they didn't really make any recommendations for equipment that
Yep.
they've had experience with that worked, some that worked better than others. I mean, that's one thing that I liked about them as well.
Yeah, Civics gave me a lot of different places to go to look at equipment that were affordable.
Just as some examples, City of Bozeman, Butte Silverbow, Anaconda. Who else were some of the other ones close by? Ravalli County. There's some that I can think of offhand that are using Civics Plus at the moment. But there's quite a few more. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Do you have anything on this, Nicole, at all?
On the website?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So next 10:45 is our cybersecurity training.
Can I take us back to 10:15 for just a second and the State of the County address? That's something we used to do, and I would like us to get that going again. A lot of counties do it. We have the State of the Union address, and then we have the State of the State address, and a lot of cities and counties do State of the City, State of the County addresses. How do you guys feel about that? There was an article last year, but it didn't go anywhere. What do you guys feel about reaching out to the public and offering them a State of the County address, sharing with them where we're at, how the budget season went, all those details? Some of the good things that have happened, hospital, the TED, I mean, this county is just absolutely simmering with good stuff right now, and there's no communication as to that getting beyond those meetings. So what would you guys think about putting together a State of the County address for the public?
Yeah, that'd be fine. Are we planning to have a mid-budget review here pretty quick? Is that coming up?
We used to do quarterly budget reviews, so that would be October 1, December, March, and then June. I think we need to. Debbie sent out an email and advised department heads to look at their budgets. But I think if the commission is watching the budget, this goes to the oversight we talked about a couple of meetings ago, if we're providing the oversight that we're required to do, and there's something that's starting to happen, we can address that early on before it becomes a volcanic eruption. So I would strongly encourage that we pick that up and do it again. I think it's extremely important. So a State of the County address. Probably the best way to get that out to folks is, I would think, more of a bullet type article versus paragraphs. People read bullets more than they do full paragraphs. And I would like to suggest that we do a postcard so that it goes to every box holder. Not everybody has internet to look at a website. Not everybody gets the newspaper. Some get the IR, some get Belgrade News. And I think that is the only way to get a full message out to our folks. Are you good with that? I think at the very least our public deserves to know.
Nicole, do you remember how much it cost us for our last mailing?
Well, the last mailing was a brochure. I'm asking for a postcard, which would be a fraction of the cost. Full color, both sides, EDDM. They're not that expensive, but it's nowhere near a newsletter, so I would ask that we not compare those prices because it's apples and
We
turkeys.
just did a postcard for the mosquito board, and I guess
That was
that was
$213.
$213 for how many? Can't remember. I think I took that out of my book here. There were 60 cents a piece. I just remember. It was 60 cents a piece. How many do you anticipate we'd send out?
Do you remember how many? 3,000.
1,800 bucks.
That would be a good time too to let the public know that we are working on a new website for them, also to better communicate. Like I said, there's a lot of really good things going on in this county right now.
think that'd be worthwhile, because like the mosquito meeting we had the other day, we had, what, 5 people show up?
We did, but Jessica said she got a lot of response via email because people said, I'm working, I can't come right at that time. But she did get a lot of people to respond via email, and she had a few by phone.
Well, I guess if we can keep our costs under $2,000, I'm okay with something like that.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that.
I don't know about, I would imagine that's easily done, but I would like some wiggle room. I mean, we're talking about $12,000 for a website. Let's not cheapen up to the point of stagnation or excluding some folks from a state of the county address. So I would agree, let's keep it at 1,800, under 2,000, but if it has to go a little bit above that, because we don't know the cost at this point, that we have that wiggle room. Is that agreeable?
I'm okay with that.
Okay, so I will move that we proceed in that vein for a state of the county address to communicate with our public, with the citizens of Broadwater County.
With a limit of $2,000 on it?
With a limit set of $2,000, ideally with the ability to go either direction if need be.
Is there a second?
I'll second that with the friendly amendment that if it does go over the $2,000, that we be informed of that before we do it.
And I don't even think that's necessary, it's fine, I'll accept it, but something like this is from the full commission, and with everything we have done with the communication, it has included the in full commission, so there would be absolutely no surprises whatsoever. I just don't want something to kill the ability to communicate with the public.
Okay. So there's a motion and a secondary discussion. Tim, comment?
Yeah, point of inquiry, because this is not on the agenda, is it really proper to make a decision? You brought up the thing that was on the agenda regarding the website and all of that stuff, and it's moved forward for discussion and further examination. But to make a decision on this is not on the agenda, people wouldn't really have that opportunity to speak. And I'm speaking for myself as a citizen, asking the question.
Well, I guess
I read it on my agenda.
the conversation was under the state of the county address. I guess that's what we were talking about, right?
That is
Yeah.
correct.
Yep.
Yeah, and county communication needs,
I feel that's appropriate.
yeah.
Any further comment? Take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same. Motion carries.
And for the record, I think we can get it done for even under the 18.
So I'll go to our 10:45 cybersecurity training, server data backup, new computers, and program updates.
We've had this cybersecurity training through MACO a number of times. It's been the subject at a number of our conferences, so I'm glad it's on the agenda, and salute Daryl for bringing this forward.
Sure. So I guess one reason that I brought it forward is partly an article that I read, and I'm just going to read just parts of it. It's from our NACO newsletter we get. Anyway, it's entitled, Hackers See County as Targets. We were struck by how much the attackers really knew about county government. He said we could see some of the terms they were searching for in compromised email accounts. They were searching for words like treasurer and commissioner. They understood how county government is structured and who might have the type of information they are looking for and who might have it. The attackers had done their homework. So the article goes on to talk about different types of cyber attacks, but and it also explains how counties require all their employees to complete a cybersecurity training. I think that is probably going to be, that attack is only going to get greater and be in more frequency. I know that we do have some cybersecurity measures already. We do a pretty good job at it. But every now and then we have a little awakening. And a lot of times, I was talking with one of our technicians from DIS, and it can be as simple as a browser update. You get a little email that says, update your Chrome browser, and there you go. The threat is into your system. So we just need to continue to educate our employees and make sure that we're protected. And I did talk with some folks at Mako. They're actually developing some new courses, and they're going to let us know. And Laura mentioned that DIS might be able to help us as well. So I just wanted to bring that awareness out.
I think, we were talking to Josh, and he said that one county that they used to serve, but they no longer serve anymore, but they do a little bit of maintenance for them. They ended up getting hacked, their whole system was down, they ended up buying iTunes cards to buy a Bitcoin to pay off the guys to open their computers back up.
So
Cost them like $75,000.
yeah, so that's what they do. They hold your computer system for ransom, and you either pay it or not. So this is actually another measure that we've already wanting to take, is to back up. We have two servers, one here in the courthouse, one in the sheriff's office. They back up to one another so that our data is protected. But the suggestion from DIS was to back up to the cloud as well. So if something happens to either one of these two servers, we still have all our data backed up to the cloud. If for some reason we lost our data or it got ransomed, we could start over. So, just measures we're trying to take.
So if we went through this training, was Mako and DIS offering the training?
We're not positive yet. I'm still waiting to, Mako said that they're working on some programs, and we'll see what they have to offer.
So do we do that like a department head type deal?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we'll have to schedule it, get our employees to go through it.
I think if you reach out to maybe Brian Frost with Seagen in Helen there, he sends down our training that we have to go through at the sheriff's office. I think it's every year, and it's all online, and it's cybersecurity training. It's free. It'd be good for other employees if they haven't done it.
And who's he with?
Seagen's services with the state, so they already have a training program, and it gets sent to us, and hey, it's this time again, you gotta complete it, print out your certificate.
Okay.
It's a video course online, test. I think you did, didn't you? Yeah.
And we have updated our data back up to the cloud with DIS.
Yes.
That's been done. And with the new computers, we also got the single server, right?
Right,
Instead of the two.
right.
Okay. The sheriff's department still has a server or not? You guys?
We got a bunch of computers, I'm sure there's
Okay.
several servers over there. I wasn't aware that it was linked to the one over here, and this one was linked to that, so that's beyond my scope. But
I think that Corey had an additional server, and it's been done DIS said that it's less expensive for us to have one server that can be shared, and that's the direction we're going, so we don't have to maintain 3 servers, we won't have to maintain 2.
We purchased the server a couple of years back for all of our video and image storage too, just for that, so that was through DIS and they set it up.
And with this vault upgrade, it's unlimited, so with all of your stuff, we'll store in the cloud as well. I'm always skeptical about the cloud,
I
but
don't know where the cloud's at.
So, the next one is the railroad quiet zone.
oh, let's hold on, Mike. We needed to talk about the upgrades for our computers. That was part of.
Oh, no, we didn't know.
We needed to talk about that.
So,
So EIS sent us did you guys get a copy of the replacements?
yes.
So, they said there are, out of the 15 computers that, this is, we voted on this here a couple months ago
Yeah.
to do this. But out of those 15 computers that we thought might need replacement, they said that 7 of them can be upgraded. They're new enough. They were purchased in, one was in 2016, the others were in 2017. So they feel that they can be upgraded to Windows 10. The other 8 they felt they were older computers. 2011, 12, 14, even one back in 2007. That probably needed to be upgraded. So, just for everyone's information, to install the new server, have those 8 computers, new computers, 7 of them up, and then 7 computers upgraded, with all the licensings and also the, I think that, yeah, unlimited vault to the cloud. That cost came out to $32,083.60, which is less than the $48,598.60 that we originally thought it was going to cost.
This is the kind of expenditure that we reserve our PILT for,
Mhm.
capital improvements and unforeseen situations.
Right.
So this would be one of those that we should use PILT to cover it, unless you guys have another idea.
I agree. No, I think Bill's a great way to cover that cost.
I would then move that we use PILT to cover the cost for the upgrades to computers and programs as needed and defined by DIS. And backup.
Is there a second?
Well, second.
Motion been made, second to use PILT money for the computer backups, the server, and the data backup. Any further comment? Yes, Tim?
Tim Ravendall, citizen. Just for clarification, the question I raised earlier regarding the county address, I see it on the agenda, but because it was mixed in, the agenda really was not clear to separate that as a different issue. That's why I raised the question. That brings back to that question and the one you're currently on. Where is that funding coming from? Is it coming from PILT, or is it already allocated through the commission budget?
We just, apparently you didn't hear us, Tim. We said that we were gonna pay for it out of PILT.
I apologize because I didn't hear that.
Yes,
Thank you for
Yep.
clarifying.
you're welcome.
That's what it's about, clarification. Thank
Okay.
you.
Motion on the table, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. So we'll go to our 1045 Railroad Quiet Zone Facts and Opportunities.
I left my paperwork, I'll be right back.
asking the train to not blow their horns at crossings at 6th Street and at the sewer lagoon. To establish that, you have to establish a quiet zone. And there's also rules for the engineers for blowing their horns when they come through town and where they have to do it at. This was brought up to the city a number of years ago. One reason the city didn't do it was because all costs associated with shutting with the quiet zone are borne by the local government. Basic systems, a 4-quadrant gate system is $300,000 to $500,000. A basic active warning system is $185,000 to $400,000. A basic interconnect is $5,000 to $15,000. Annual maintenance is $4,000 to $10,000. So if you were to put those two sites in, it would most likely, I don't know, if you went to the 4-quadrant system, it could cost you $2 million. If you went to the basic active warning system, it would cost you $1.6 million. So I don't know where you're gonna come up with the funding to do that. I don't know what other options there are. This is just stuff that we got from, this is the Federal Railroad Administration's train horn and quiet zone rule. So that's kind of the facts that we have. I don't know where you would get the funding for this. And I don't know that the county, I think the county's only responsibility if you were to do this would be Indian Creek Road. And I don't know where, it's the city's lagoon, so I don't know who, if that's outside of, is that outside of city limits? It is. City limits is the town's entire.
Is it? Rather than no.
What is that what you sent us, Daryl,
Yeah.
the extent of it? Did you get anything more from the gentleman that you talked to?
That was it, this is the stuff that he sent. You know, I talked with him about the systems that they put in Helen. As a matter of fact, I think when we were up there last week, I stopped and looked at a couple of those crossings just to kind of see how involved they are. It's a fair amount there. I could see where the cost is in that. So he said, yeah, this is something that's not just here, it's across the nation. But the information he sent, and I guess maybe part of it's worth reading, is the federal regulation for locomotive engineers. Must begin to sound train horns at least 15 seconds and no more than 20 seconds in advance of all public grade crossings. Train horns must be sounded in the standard pattern of 2 long, 1 short, and 1 long blast. The patterns must be repeated or prolonged until the lead locomotive or lead cab car occupies the grade crossing. The rule does not stipulate the duration of the long and short blasts. The maximum volume level for the train horns is 110 decibels, which is a new requirement. The minimum sound level remains 96 decibels. He went on to say that, of course, the engineers are the ones that are responsible for doing that. And he said that they do get checked. They have people that go to the grade crossings and see if these engineers are doing their jobs. And if they're not, then there's a big fine involved. So you can probably see why they're apprehensive about some of these things. So I guess that's kind of really part of the discussion that we had.
I have a little bit different information that I want to share as well, and I sent this to you guys. And anyone who wants this, I've sent it to a few people. I'm more than happy to share it with everyone. So the rule is number 222, and then there's a couple of sub-rules in that. And according to John Althrup and his federal contact on this, what we need to do in order to create a quiet zone, and it is being done all over. We know there's 2 major cities in Montana, major for Montana, Helena and Billings have done it and done it with great success. We also know that there's a number of smaller communities that have done it. How did they get it done without breaking the bank for their cities or counties? That's the big question, especially for the smaller counties out there. So in looking at some of the details, if the crossing arms are not there, that's where you're talking about the huge costs. If the crossing arms aren't there, Broadwater County can't afford it. There are a number of crossings that have those crossing arms. So what they ask for is SSMs, and I forget what that stands for, but what it is traffic calming. So there's a couple of different things that they look for in that, and one that you see in Helena is the divider in the highway, in the road, that keeps vehicles going opposite directions from veering into each other at a crossing site. That is something that a road crew for a county or a city can do. Our crews are more than just maintenance, they are also construction teams. The other thing is additional signage. So what I have here, I have some graphs too. Again, I'm going to share these with everybody. But what it is instructions on how you can get started. One, you apply per crossing. So what we would do is target who the partners are. If the city is interested, I would suggest having a meeting. If we want to just do this as a county, we can. There's no cost to step number one. What we can do is show the crossing. So let's say Indian Creek. Show that it's got the arms, it's got the signage. What our proposal would be, we actually send an application to the Department of Transportation. This does not go to the railroad. It actually goes to the Federal Department of Transportation. They would review it, and they would come out and give us a cost estimate, review our plan, tweak it, probably add something, I would expect, because we're dealing with the federal government. And then at that point, we could evaluate the time, cost, materials, all the information we know, and decide what is the cost, what is the benefit to the citizens, how many people want this. We have a lengthy petition, the letter's from UGB, but I understand you represent a minimum of 150 people. That's significant, right?
Not that many, but.
Oh, okay. A good number of people. So that's something we can do for $0.00, is just get some facts on what we can do and what the cost would be before we decide to move forward or to not move forward. Thoughts?
May I speak? What about grant money? Is there a possibility that there's grant money out there? There's grant money for everything, so maybe there's some grant money.
To Nancy's point, I think there's a number of different agencies we could look at. All those that deal with economic development, because you're talking about businesses, and that would just be for starters. There's a number at the state, there's a number of federal, so that is something we could look into.
Yeah, sure.
I just completed the AARP over 55 safe driving class so that I could reduce my insurance premiums. One of the biggest bulletins in that whole brochure we had was fatalities increased 20% at railroad crossings in quiet zones. That's just what it increases by, is 20%. I also have a high school classmate who's an engineer, and he said in a quiet zone, you don't know the fear that goes through the engineer's mind with 110 cars behind him at 55 miles an hour, and there's something approaching the track. He said, that's why the engineers don't like quiet zones. Just FYI.
Thank you.
I think the 20% is significant.
Mr. Chairman, I'd have a comment. I support the idea of the quiet zone. A summer ago, I was up in Malta, a little tiny town, smaller than ours, and the train goes right through the middle of town and there's not a sound. I happened to be in a motel right next to the railroad track. Certainly was nice. If it could be done, and done cheaply, I don't want to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars for it, but we've got cross arms, I think, both at Broadway and Front and Indian Creek. Even getting those two shut down for noise would be really nice. Thank you.
I guess while we're on the railroad topic, you know, if I think, you know, with Ms. Wilson's, you know, comment on the 20%, you know, personally and as a safety professional, if we could avoid a disaster, you know, we've been pretty lucky with that train barreling through town at 58, you know, 55 miles an hour for years. Is there any way to do a speed limit with this as well? And, you know, if that is an option, maybe it's a little easier to get a quiet zone and make the engineers feel a little safer. But, you know, we got a lot of propane tanks sitting right on those tracks. I've seen trail derailments on the news, never hear you. So my fear is, you know, the businesses, the traffic on 287, how close it is of what those cars will do if they crash at that speed. So I've been thinking it for years of speed limit would be great. So if you guys just take that under consideration.
Thanks, Brandon.
Would the railroad enforce that speed limit, or who would?
You know, it's a rumor, I don't know this for sure, that the city of Helena has a speed limit. I've heard that Toston has a speed limit for the trains. I find it ridiculous that, you know, a 6,000-pound car has to slow down to 25, but I don't even know how many tons a train can barrel through this town at, you know, 58 miles an hour is ridiculous. So maybe we could talk both hand in hand and get something accomplished there.
That'd be it'd be a 24-hour speed limit, would it not?
I would say
Because
yes,
some of these
just-
quiet zones are only like from 10 to 7.
Yeah, I think the speed limit would need to be permanent, just safety-wise, and with the size of the propane tanks and the businesses right on those tracks. And, you know, Front Broadway is not very far from the main tracks there, so, you know, whenever it did derail, it could do some serious damage.
I think if we're going for the information on these other crossings, that would be something that would be I would be more inclined for the speed limit than I would be for the quiet zone, I think.
Are you opposed, though, to getting facts? Maybe
Yes.
putting in an application, getting feedback back that says, these are the facts you guys would be dealing with? Would you be opposed to that?
No, I don't think so.
No, it's fine to get some facts. I'd like to see our citizens get involved in that process.
I would imagine we could have quite a few of them come to a meeting, especially if we did a public meeting at night, perhaps on this subject. And I would imagine we could even put together a working team.
Kind of similar to what Al did with the RRP.
Mm-hmm.
I think that'd be great.
Okay.
Yes, Shirley?
If this was presented before the city and they either turned it down or forgot about it or whatever happened, why, if the city said no, why are we looking at it now? Was there a significant reason that the city said no, so it would just go away and it's been brought up again, or?
I was at the meeting that the city had on this, and it was those numbers that I was referring to the last commission meeting, and once those numbers got brought up, I mean, they just dropped it. That paper was set aside, and I think they asked a group of citizens that were bringing it forward, you know, were you able to come up with this money, because we can't, and I think they were like, no, and it just kinda got dropped, so.
And this was talked about, I think, at that same meeting just a couple weeks ago. I was there too, and had sent information beforehand. The thing is if you talk to the Department of Transportation about this subject, they will tell you that the rules have changed. And that's why you have so many communities that have begun to do this. It is now cost effective. There aren't nearly as many hurdles. There aren't nearly as many costs involved. So if we have the infrastructure in place, like the arms, it's at least worth an investigation now because of those changes. So what happened in the past doesn't necessarily apply verbatim today, because things change, rules change, leadership changes, and I think that's what we're looking at. I appreciate you bringing that question forward, because it's nice to be able to share those details in public.
Where do we have arms, at Broadway and Indian Creek?
Indian Creek and Fifth Street, or Sixth Street.
Sixth.
Broadway, Indian Creek, and Toston are the only places with arms. And they took out that one on the other side of Madison River propane years ago. And they took out that crossing.
Winston has arms too, right?
Oh, in Winston, yeah, I apologize.
I guess really the other issue that is like that you brought up the other day is that that train blows its whistle from Toston to Winston, it seems like.
Yeah, they don't stop.
I mean, they got so many crossings in there that it's not, I mean, you could make a quiet zone in town, but you're still gonna hear the guy that blows his horn out at Chuck Hahn's every time he comes through there too. It's not gonna be as bad, but it's still gonna be there.
With a working team, I would like the full commission to be a part of that, so that there are no surprises. When information is learned, it would be nice for the three of us to learn it together, and to be able to come to a meeting together like this, where everybody is dealing with the same light, and nobody is not as fully informed as the others. So I'll reach out after the meeting today and see what we can put together.
Okay.
The other thing with this is, we can either work with the city now, or we can actually do our part with a crossing that's just county, get some details together, and then share those to counteract the old numbers of the past. Or confirm them. It may be that, if it's cost prohibitive, at least we'll have those facts.
Are there arms at Springville, or are there?
No arms on either.
What's that?
No arms on either.
No, Or York Island, or,
And I don't think we'd be looking at county-wide. I think just in the cities or the heavily populated areas. And only with the partnerships. If the citizens aren't interested, and we're addressing this because we have a big petition with a lot of signatures. There's a lot of people interested and asking us to do something. If the citizens don't want it, then I don't think we should spend a lot of time imposing something on them. But if they come to us and say, we want this, I think we're obligated to look into it for them.
okay, is there any other information on this? Okay, so we will move on to our next item. With 10:45, the county annex for extension ferry ambulance and meeting.
I added this to the agenda, and the only reason I did, this I think will take less than 2 minutes. We had a working meeting last week and told Mike to go forth, he's gone, but to go forth and conquer with what he had proposed as a plan and we agreed to. We need to make that official because we can't make a firm decision or a final decision in a working meeting. So it's on the agenda so that we can make that decision so that he has his marching orders to move forward.
Sure. I guess maybe as an update to that, this is a meeting that Mike had arranged, and asked if I wanted to attend. It was the folks from the Montana State Prison came over to look at our spot and to give us an idea on maybe providing the furniture for it. So that happened last week. They just measured the room, talked about what our needs might be, and they're going to give us a proposal. So.
Sounds good.
Yes, Brandon.
And, so our desks at the sheriff's office were made from the prison clear back when they built that in '05, and they're very solid, heavy desks.
Yeah.
And
So,
is that just for the meeting room or is that for everything?
Do you want something new, Allison?
No, I actually like my desk, I'm just curious.
They could probably provide whatever we need, but we just talked about the meeting room, and when we discussed what your needs would be as well, you know, so we'll see what they come up with. And, yeah, I think they could do whatever we would desire. So if you have some thoughts, let us know.
So are we gonna wait on, cameras and equipment for that meeting room until we get done with our web thing, or?
Well, you know, I was
Pretty
kind
much
of
gonna
hoping
have to.
by now that we'd had a little more information. When we were at our last Mako conference, I met and I think you might have too, we talked to that fellow from DIS, right?
We all
Yeah.
three did.
Well, yes, right, you did too, Laura. Anyway, he had cameras there and some different things, and I've emailed him several times. He has returned my emails, and he's looking at equipment, but I was hoping that he would have something more definitive for us of what they could provide in that regard. He just hasn't got back to us yet. So
Okay.
I know that Civics Plus gave us some ideas on some cameras that we could use that were relatively inexpensive. So I guess I'd like to see what GAS can provide. I mean, I really did like the equipment that you had. And I noticed, I don't know if you guys noticed, when we went to our meeting with the Bureau in their office, did you see the meeting room cameras they had there? I'm sure that those were really expensive. So I think there's some options out there.
If we're gonna move our meetings over there, and then it's gonna take Civics Plus half a year to get this thing up and running, is there any way that we're gonna be able to do anything with that system prior to going onto that website?
I don't know.
Yes,
I think there probably is, yeah.
there absolutely is.
Yeah.
A lot of counties stream, and you don't have to have a website for that.
Right.
Okay.
So, yeah, we absolutely could, and I think we should.
So if
This
we're,
little guy's on his last legs, so I do think it's something we wanna,
so if we're streaming, does that archive?
Mhm.
So you don't have to, so that would be covered if we moved over there then?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And that would be good because ours are unedited and uncut. That's huge. We're not spoon feeding people what somebody wants them to see or hear or know. We're giving them the whole package. That's what transparency is. And the only way to get that is from our videos.
So the other thing on the annex is I believe the ambulance is going to try to move in there around the 8th. Mike got the approval on the asbestos. There's no asbestos, so some of that wall's been taken down. I believe he changed out one door already. He'll change out the other door into the maintenance bay and then frame in the walk door for ambulance so they can start moving some of their stuff over there. And I think he said that they had the door swap going on between the Opportunity Bank building and the ambulance building. I think he said it was scheduled for right around the 8th, so the ambulance will be moving in there, and then that building the ambulance building will just be, essentially will be boarded up.
Awesome.
All right.
And a gal from the EPA called me on Friday prior to the hospital meeting. There's a very minuscule issue with the cleanup on that building. She said that they can't find the monitoring well. So they're gonna have to re-drill a monitoring well. It says it's not gonna cost as much because it's not gonna go very deep, and all of it's covered by the previous cleanup fund, so there won't be any cost to the city, to the county. They'll just have to go, and it says what happened is they dug up a tank. There was very little contamination from the tank. It never reached the water table. But then when they backfilled the hole, somebody took a scoop of dirt that evidently was contaminated. It's been sitting at the EPA for 20 years, never got tested. It slipped through the two different transitions in the EPA. The same one fell through the cracks. And now it's come up. Earl didn't even find it, so now they're gonna go back and finally close that thing out. So it shouldn't be that long before they do that with no cost to the county on that process. The paper that we didn't sign the other day, are we still waiting for Corey to?
This is what his suggestions were, I think I gave.
So he's gonna send that back to?
Well, I had asked him to, I guess I wanted you guys to look at it.
I think that's what we should do, is send it back with the changes.
With those
that he made.
changes? Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay.
And that's not something we necessarily have to put on, because that was already put on for last
It
week.
was,
This is
yeah.
just one
I
straggler.
just wanted to
We
make
just
sure
need
we
to
all
get it.
agree.
Yeah, no, I think that's good,
Get it updated.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Question, are you guys good with Raidersburg and Toston being on the agenda for next week? I sent an email with those issues and the thought that we need to have a resolution that reflects the facts of the situation. You guys good with
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay. Then I think we'll work on the resolution together via email and, okay.
All right, good. We had a pretty busy week last week of,
Yeah, if somebody wants to go ahead with an update.
I guess I can start.
We went to a meeting that for every single county agency and partner and board. that
And
we
board,
have.
I think so, I
Yeah.
think so.
We hit them all.
We reviewed applicants for the extension and fair position, and interviews are gonna be this Wednesday, the 27th. Interviewed applicants for the captain's position at the sheriff's office. We all went to the BOR meeting at Canyon Ferry and toured their campground as well, and we discussed a possible partnership or assistance with BOR. I attended a MVAC meeting in Helena. Mosquito District Expansion Meeting, Board of Health. We did the Deep Creek Tour and closeout of that project, LAPC meeting, and Fair Board.
I attended all of those except for LEPC and MBAC, but also Board of Crime Control. There is a bill, it's a study bill on the structure, the new structure of the Board of Crime Control that was brought forward by Representative Mercer, who used to be a U.S. attorney. And what was repeated by the legislators a couple of times was that they are concerned about the lack of autonomy of the board now. So that's extremely hopeful for Montana. What Board of Crime Control brings into Montana, or brought in the year of the transition, was $18 million. The congressional act that creates the state administering agency, which is what the Board of Crime Control is, and every state has one, is an act of Congress called the Omnibus Crime Control and Safe Streets Act. That bill was the result of a study under President Johnson in the Congress back way in 1968 and before, that said that your most valuable and effective dollars spent when it comes for that bill in that study, law enforcement, crime prevention, is at the local level. So this act put in place a state administering agency that would collect federal funds and specifically drill those dollars to local governments, number one, and law enforcement, number two. And really the two are in parallel because we work so well together. So over the years, a little bit more has been going to state agencies, especially as the state has found itself in a budget crunch. And that was some of the reason for the transition, one of the reasons given for why this was done was to take the personnel at Board of Crime Control and wrap them into Department of Corrections. Save the money, yet keep the admin, and then also have some more dollars that would stay at the state level versus going to the local government level. So a lot of that came out in the testimony. They've known a lot of that from before. So their questions centered, it was Natalia Bowser who gave an overall, she is the bureau chief for the Board of Crime Control under Department of Corrections. Peter Oman is our new chair, he's with the Public Defender's Office. And then Rick Kern is with Tribals. Nations represented them, he's also our vice chair. And then I represented local governments and also the long-term member. I've been on for about 10 years. So it was incredibly encouraging. So hopes are high that something will be done to make sure that that $18 million is protected for local governments and law enforcement going into the future. And then there were a number of community meetings last week to add to all the county meetings. And that's it. So if you guys have any questions, I'm an open book on Board of Crime Control. It is my passion, and I will give you anything you need to know, want to know, or more information than you ever ask for.
I went to most of those meetings and also the hospital district board where we discussed the Brownsfield cleanup, and I think most things are straightened out there. The sub-grant that we got said that the county was the owner of the ambulance building, which is not true. The district board owns the ambulance building. However, the spill that originated was on ground that the county owned, so I think that's kind of where things got mixed up a little bit. I think that everything's gonna get straightened out there with Snowy Mountain as far as having the district board sign as the owner, and then the county would be the agency that handles the paperwork. They're still working on that. Corey was there and then had to go, but I think they're still working on all that paperwork. So that'll get cleared up so they can get that building taken down. And that's not, from my understanding, is it's not holding up the transaction between Broadwater Health Center and Billings Clinic at all. There's some other issues there that Chicago lawyers are involved with.
I think it's cleared up with the Chicago lawyers. They got some bad information that just wasn't true. Reacted to that, that's what stalled it. Now that they have the truth, we're on track.
Okay.
And that came from Randy at a Rotary meeting, so, public. I was also at that meeting and the week board.
So is there anything else to come before the commission?
Mr. Chairman, at some point in time, you had mentioned having a motion to make official what you did at your working meeting on Friday, and the conversation went elsewhere.
Thanks, Ann. You always keep us on track. I will move that I don't know if a motion was made, but I'll move that we proceed with what was discussed at the working meeting and instruct Mike to proceed with the plan for the needed renovations in the county annex.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion been made, a second to have Mike proceed with work at the annex. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. And with that, we will adjourn at 11:27.
No, recess, we have a 2 o'clock.
What's that? Oh, it's for recess for 2 o'clock at the silos, right?
Yep.
The silos store.
I wish everybody happy Thanksgiving coming up.
Same here.
Enjoy your blast of winter, it's coming.